go ahead and do a roll call.
Amanda Hermitz.
Here.
Samantha McDavid.
Present.
Sarah Moses.
Here.
Ariel Holland.
Present.
Mary Wilson.
Here.
Casey Mears.
Present.
David Seymour.
Present.
Shannon Scallon.
Here.
Okay. First up, we have public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the start of the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. Comments? Okay, no comments? All right, next up is board committee reports and correspondence. Does anyone have any committee reports or correspondence?
I'm
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I had a chance to go to Jefferson to observe the RISE intervention
Awesome.
last week, so that was really great.
That's great. That's wonderful.
I had an opportunity to attend the Veterans Assembly at Honey Middle School. It was an awesome event as well, so good job to everyone there.
Nice.
And I think since the last time we met, I went to the Mensa program and talked to Wendy Bono and just kind of got a little bit more detail to be able to see it running like in action with a lot of our students back in our community instead of having to be transported half an hour to an hour and a half away. It was really exciting.
I also had a conversation with one of the teachers at Huntley when I was visiting there about, and just kind of dialogue, we had a small dialogue about some potential partnerships that we can create with some of the centers at NIU potentially that we want to bring up in the near future. So I discussed it with Ari because she's actually the assistant director of one of those centers, creating just partnerships and starting to bridge those connections between the district and the university.
Wonderful.
I did attend the Curriculum Council meeting, monthly meeting. That went great. There were some nice proposals that they did. And then also Safety Committee this week. So always great discussions going on there. And they're also looking for more interest from the community for people to join. So anyone in the community, Northwestern, someone from Northwestern, so they're looking for more people to join. Really good information.
Great. Okay.
I too participated in that meeting, so I concur with what Amanda said. And also, last time we met, I mentioned that my fraternity was participating in a community service event that we did on Thursday. And we donated hats, gloves, and scarves to the students at Clinton Rosette Middle School.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Anybody else? No? Okay, lots of stuff going on. I did want to bring up doing a board self-evaluation, which would occur the week of, let me just get my calendar. It would be that last week in November, first week of December. And Laura Martinez would be available to come out for a board self-evaluation either Monday the 29th, Tuesday the 30th, or Thursday the 2nd of December. If everyone could right now, let me know your availability. If you could, if you get at least a quorum and ideally the whole board to do that.
Can you please repeat the dates?
Sure.
Please?
So Monday the 29th, Tuesday the 30th, or Thursday the 2nd.
And what time is this?
Well, we can determine a
Oh.
time. I mean, evening would probably be ideal, probably 6.
Wait. Thursday the 2nd, you said, right?
Thursday the 2nd, yeah.
The 29th, I have a SCL committee meeting with the district
I have the same one.
from 3 to 4, but
Okay.
I should be available after that.
So let me
Tuesday,
do
I'm
that.
free as well after 4:30, and Wednesday, you said Thursday, right? I'm not available on Thursday.
Okay, so
Thursday is also hard for me.
So Monday and Tuesday
Monday,
work for
Tuesday
me.
work for Daisy.
I cannot do Tuesday.
Monday for Ari. Can you do the 2nd, Ari?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm available any of those, Sarah.
Okay, Amanda's off. David?
Monday and Tuesday are not good. Thursday is the better day for me.
Okay. And when you say not good, is a no, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let me sure. Okay, Sam, did you tell me?
Monday and Tuesday would work better for me, but I can make Thursday work.
And I can make Thursday work only if it's at 7:30, because I have a prior meeting.
7:30 on Thursday would work for me.
Okay,
I know that's late, but
okay.
How
So,
long is this event supposed to?
I think that it would probably take, I would guess like 2 hours max. Because we've already really done protocols, so this would be like an update of protocols and then just to talk about, just that one on top.
I'm currently slated to be in town that week.
Okay.
Those are always flexible, but as of right now, I can probably make any of them fly. I would say Thursdays usually are safer only because I'm usually coming home Thursday night even if I'm gone. So
Okay.
something late Thursday would probably be better for me as well.
Okay, I mean, as long as everybody's not opposed to like later, and it's got to work for Laura, but I mean, she said I'm sure she's always good about it, so.
My meeting's from 5:30 to 7:30, so I can probably get here a couple minutes if you want me to start at 7:30.
Okay, or we could do like 7:45, I guess, and go till 9:45, I mean.
Mhm.
what about,
Um,
is Minerva part of our board?
Yeah,
of
Minerva,
Self-Evaluation?
yeah.
Does that work for you?
Thursday's the only day that works for me.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. And
Unless the
then,
Packers are playing Thursday night football, which is.
you just have a TV running in the
I'll
background. So, okay, I'm okay with Thursday. So it looks like Thursday, and Chance, this is an executive session, closed session, so you don't have to be there, so you have that night off. But we will definitely fill you in. So, okay, so we will go ahead and move forward with our board self-evaluation on Thursday, December 2nd. Most likely we'll have to have it maybe like starting at 7:45. So I will touch base with Laura Martinez and get that in the books. Yes, Sam.
Can I add, Ari and I worked together to kind of like come up with a couple extra, or another iteration of the mission and value, our mission and vision that you and Daisy had worked on previously. I didn't like prepare it tonight, but maybe this would be a good time to bring that, if that fits in with our protocols. I don't know.
Let me double check with her because this will be a closed session
Gotcha.
and
That makes sense.
that
So-
will kind of be open. So we could talk about, though, if we do go into open after that, because I know there's a couple things that we may need to vote on,
Okay.
that we could share it there.
And I'm thinking, I mean, it might be as simple as just sending out kind of what we got to get some, like,
Sure.
feedback, so
General
maybe
feedback.
all to you so that you can.
Perfect, yeah.
Okay.
So just so everybody is aware, everybody knows, based on the feedback that we received, we're actually based on the goals that the previous board actually approved, and based on the recommendations from some of the town hall meetings that the community attended and provided us feedback with. Sarah and I started working on the mission, vision, and values and beliefs for the district based on the feedback, and obviously making sure that it aligned with everything that was provided and the goals that the previous board came up with. So we kind of worked on some stuff to obviously bring back to the board. At the last board meeting, Ari and Samantha volunteered to provide feedback and support on that. So they worked on the vision and the mission to help us wrap that up so that we can officially bring it to the board with the feedback of the community in the town hall meetings. So thank you to the community members that attended and provided support with that as well.
Absolutely. All right. Anybody else, anything? All right, okay, moving on to our next item is the Music Boosters presentation.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time. For those of you I have not yet met, I'm Jill McCormick. This is my 20th year in District 428. I teach music at Founders, but I'm also the music coordinator for the district. I also have children in the secondary music program. So several years ago, I started becoming involved not only as a teacher, but as a parent for my children in Music Boosters. So we had some really exciting things happen recently in Music Boosters, and I'd like to introduce our president. This is Mrs. Tammy Farrow, who will also be helping with this presentation. We've expanded our bylaws, and we are really excited about it. And this is one of those positive presentations. It's always good to be advocating for music. That's a huge part of my job as coordinator, a huge part of Tammy's job as president of Music Boosters, and it's always good to hear positive information. So, on to our next slide. Mrs. Farrow will continue here.
So the DeKalb Music Boosters mission as the primary advocate of the music performance programs of DeKalb School District 428 is to serve and assist the music performance programs and their directors. So we support our music students and their teachers across the district. We have a long history of that, and so it is our sole purpose to foster their enjoyment of listening to and making music a lifelong activity.
And if you know a lot of musicians or music teachers or music lovers, you know that we are a passionate bunch of people that are really proud of what we do. And I really feel like the pandemic made people realize, even maybe casual music listeners who go to a concert now and then, just how vital music is in our lives and our communities when we couldn't attend a lot of those live performances and we couldn't see our children performing live. I think a lot of people that hit really hard during that time. So our role in Music Boosters is to, I think I skipped one. There we go. It was formed in 1999, which was shortly before I started here. And it was formed by a passionate group of music parents. And the original vision was to support 6th through 12th grade ensembles. So those of you that are familiar with our award-winning music program know that we have band, orchestra, choir, and then we also have jazz band as our main ensembles. We also have lots of other outreaches in orchestra and in choir to support that, like a cappella that a lot of you know about, string band, things like that. So originally, it was supposed to sort of mimic what our sports boosters, our bar boosters do. It was supposed to support the ensembles as sports were supported by parent volunteers. I think it's safe to say that you would already know this information, that we are very, very proud of our music program here. And so the Music Boosters over that 20-year-ish period has given many, many thousands of dollars in financial help to our directors and our students for a variety of reasons. But really a huge part of what we do as well is the volunteering. So we have a huge number of events that are big events that are either hosted here because we have the beautiful facilities at DeKalb High School, or that involve a lot of students. And so what we need is a lot of manpower for that. And we also are able to help give teachers some more opportunities to students by helping to fund certain things. So that was the original goal. It has been 6th through 12th grade supported as long as I have been here. And so we thought maybe it was time for a positive change. And so we decided to include in our bylaws kindergarten through 5th grade.
Wow.
Yes, which we feel like, sorry about that huge pause, I didn't mean to speak. But I was like, is that the red slide? But we have, just so you know, DeKalb School District has an incredible elementary music program because we see children twice a week. Wow. So a lot of neighboring districts see kids once a week. We see them twice a week, so in many ways we're able to provide nearly twice the curriculum and twice the foundation, which is why our music continues to be so strong in 6th through 12 because we give them such a great foundation here. It's such a gift to be able to have them twice a week. So we thought, Tammy actually brought it to my attention and said, what do you think about this? And of course, yes, was my answer. But it has been a certain way for a long time. So we needed to do some legwork on that.
Well, and a little background. I mean, when I came in to the district, when my son was a freshman, he's a senior now. You know, I do not have a long history in this district. My son was in private school, but he's a lifelong musician. He started in early music education when he was a toddler. And so, you know, we're a music family. And so when I joined Music Boosters right away, when we became a DHS family, I was surprised to learn that there was no support at the early level. And so I made it my mission to change that. So I became the vice president, and then I became the president. and then moved to get everybody on the same page with me. And I really got no pushback at all, because I think everybody believes in equity here. And we all want to foster that same support, and when you start earlier, it's better. So that's what I wanted for us, and that's what's happening. So in October, we agreed, we voted, and it's now part of our bylaws. So I'm very excited by that we have that kind of support in our community, in our district.
Yay.
And absolutely didn't have to convince me to go along with that. But I also feel like it was kind of one of those things, well, it's always been this way. And so with us sort of fleshing out why we thought it needed to be K through 12, I think people really support it quickly. And just in our vision, at least currently, we don't really see a lot of that support being financial at this point. A lot of it is advocacy and getting them sort of to know who we are, and getting kids, excited about music and continuing music and pursuing it later. So a lot of it, at least currently, is going to be advocacy and support. And, hopefully parent volunteers will come with that once
And
they know.
when parents feel supported, they stay in it. And when a parent feels that they cannot afford something, they start backing out. And we don't want that to happen. So if we can provide an instrument for a student, if we can provide support to their teachers so that we can keep, because of grant funding, keep a child in camp, or maybe bolster some support that way financially, or provide a meal, whatever that support is, we try to fill the gap. There's lots of ways that we can fill that. And so, sometimes it's not direct support to the parent, to the student, it's through the teacher, because it's the teacher who sees what the deficits are, and they reach out to us and they say, we need this, and they give us a request. We say, absolutely, yes, we want to.
We love saying yes to requests.
Yes, we do.
It's nice to say yes. And so we've kind of gone over this, but some of the main things that boosters do that you may be aware of are scholarships for kids going to college to pursue music. We have summer scholarships for kids to go to summer camps. And then what Tammy was saying about a lot of experiences and things that we're able to help provide through that, and the volunteering. So as Tammy mentioned, on October 7th was our official bylaw new revision to support kindergarten through 12th grade. And so we are just so proud to come to you and say that we're out there. We're here to support kids. It's really a special place for me to be as a parent and a teacher and a booster. It's a really kind of the perfect trifecta for me to be able to see everything that's happening and just be excited to tell everyone about it. So this is some photos that, and it's a little hard to see because there are several photos there, but there are some photos here of things that the boosters have helped donate to. On the very left, it's cut off a little bit, but they helped to purchase a beautiful harp for the DeKalb High School, the second harp that we have for orchestra. If you don't know, that's not very normal to have 2 harps in an orchestra program. It's an amazing purchase that we were able to do.
And actually, it's a
Wurlitzer. Yeah, it's a Wurlitzer.
That was built in DeKalb. It's a historical instrument, over 100 years old, and it came back to the community.
Found its way home.
And it's so exciting that it can be on the stage at DeKalb High School. Also pictured here in the upper left is our jazz ensemble led by Steve Lundeen. Incredible performances, so if you ever get a chance to see them. On the right, that massive group is the choir that DHS has, led by Mr. Erickson, Travis Erickson. And if you squint, you can see some of our symphony orchestra members also joining them. Then on the bottom, you see Travis Erickson holding up a choir robe. Those were replaced a couple of years ago, and we helped to subsidize that purchase. It's very expensive to buy new uniforms. In the middle there, you see our marching band at the recent Pumpkin Festival Parade in Sycamore. And there are lots of groups that are kind of branches of us. One is the band parent organization that helps to volunteer and get together to help the marching band. And they are also part of us, and we help them heavily also. And then on the right, you see our DeKalb High School Symphony Orchestra on stage with Sheila Felder. So that's just part of our music program, and that is just what is happening at the high school and part of what's happening at the middle school. So we're very excited to continue to expand and help all of our elementary schools as well, because they're doing amazing things too.
I think one of the biggest opportunities that we have coming up is, this actually happened, we were planning this for 2020, and of course, you know, so we were, at the end of the school year, we were going to do a 5th grade mentorship program with the middle school and the high school a cappella groups, and we were really excited about it. We were going to rehearse, they were going to put on a performance, and then of course the world shut down, so we weren't able to do that. So this year we have that on the books already. I believe it's maybe February that we're planning to do that this year. So that is one of maybe the first opportunities that we would have for 5th grade to be present and to be supporting that event. So we just, again, thank you so much for your time. Does anyone have any questions that we can answer? I don't know if there's anything that you would need to know, but really, like I said, it was more of a positive, this is a great direction for our music boosters to go, and we wanted to let you know about it. But are there any questions?
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Plug,
much.
our current fundraiser is the fruit, cheese, and sausage sale, which ends at 11:59 tonight. So visit our Facebook page if you'd like to place an order. Those pickups will be on the in December, and we'll deliver to your house if you like. But those are major fundraisers that we have, and they go directly to our teachers for our support of our programs.
So fruit, meat, and cheese?
Yes.
Yes.
Fundraiser tonight?
Yes.
DeKalb Music Boosters?
And
Facebook?
tonight.
Yes,
You've
yes.
got the page, the name of the page, DeKalb.
You can go to
Music Boosters.
Facebook and just put in DeKalb Music
Music
Boosters,
Boosters.
or a Google search, DeKalb Music Boosters, and you'll find us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you so much,
everything.
and personally,
Yeah.
thank you so much for all the support the board has always shown our music department. We cannot tell you how much that means. Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our consent agenda, items A through K. And it is recommended that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items A through K, board meeting minutes, personnel action items, purchase order requisitions, payroll for September, approval of purchase order requisitions, approval of accounts payable for October, and approval of financial reports. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Nancy McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
J.C. Maris,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Harness.
Yes.
Okay, next up is new business. Okay, so up first is the DHS dance team, USDA Nationals trip. Mr.
Yes,
Horn?
hi, good evening, everybody. James Horn, high school principal. Our good news, our dance team is qualified for United Dance Association National Competition. That is held February 4th, 5th, and 6th, so it's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Better news is held in Orlando at Disney World. So we have 18 students that are going to be participating in it, 2 coaches. We're looking to send 20 people. Cost $1,000. They are looking to fundraise with the goal of being able to afford to cover at least half of the cost for each of the members of the dance team. Families are aware of the cost. What I'm asking for from the board is just permission to take the out-of-state trip.
Oh, okay. So it is recommended the Board of anybody have questions? No, okay.
Congratulations.
Okay, so that's why it's action, information, information, action, okay.
Good luck.
It is yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
It is recommended the Board of Education approve the dance team's trip to the UDA Nationals competition in February of 2020. Is there a motion? 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Casey Ramirez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yep.
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Next up is out-of-state travel National Instructional Leader Academy. Philip Iam.
Good evening, Board. I'm here to ask for permission to attend the National Instructional Leadership Academy. I was recently accepted into this highly competitive academy for January, May, and October of next year. The academy gathers district leaders from all across the country to work in professional learning communities. The topics for the 3 times that I will be attending are leading student-centered leadership, equity focus and culture, and leading quality instructional systems.
Okay, and this is action or information and action?
Yes.
So is this just for the permission to attend?
Permission to attend and the cost of attendance,
Which is,
which is $7,645.
Is that cost the total for all the sessions? Because I saw some were remote, some were going out of state.
Absolutely.
So that's multiple out of states,
It's
everything.
It's all in.
Okay, and then is it, do we have this as information action because there's a time sensitivity or?
It's information action because there was some time sensitivity around when I have to let them know that I'll be attending.
Okay, what was your deadline?
It was 7 days after I was admitted. I was admitted 7 days ago, so they're making an exception waiting for me to give
Oh,
an
so,
answer.
okay.
Congratulations on being admitted.
Thank you.
And you feel this will directly or positively impact the work you're doing for the district?
Absolutely, and it also ties into strategic priority 1 and 4.
Okay. Priority 1 is student achievement and strategic priority, and number 4, recruitment, development, and retention.
Correct.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, is there a motion?
So
so
moved.
moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Jeremy Olson,
Yes.
Casey Ramirez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes. Okay.
Thank
Congrats
you.
again.
Next up, this is also information and action, and it's Peter Goff, out-of-state travel.
Good evening, how's everyone today?
How are you
What
doing?
I'm asking for to attend is the National Athletic Directors Association's National Conference in Denver, Colorado. I am a executive board member with the IAD, the Illinois Athletic Directors Association. I recently ran our state conference. Going out there, I have on the sheet things that I'll be attending, culture building, just a lot of numerous things to help. One is to come up with a better student-oriented handbook ideas to go to, talk about how COVID-19 has affected students. So those are the types of things I'm going out there to research. I've also been put up for president-elect for my state association. So if I'm nominated, then 2 years I'll be the president of our state association. So they've asked me to get more involved in the national convention. So I'm asking to go out there.
Okay, and then the cost is $806.80?
Yep.
Okay, and that includes everything
Yeah,
Um,
includes travel, I got a round trip for 126 and hotel, and so, yeah. I went on hotwire.com. I'm very happy on Photo Machine, but make sure you plug that.
We haven't voted yet, is that
And you feel it'll directly impact positively the district, the work that you're doing for the
I believe so, because, you know, when we give our state of, with athletics, what we're working on is a lot of culture building with the book that our coaches are going to read, so it kind of just goes hand in hand.
And then there's time sensitivity around this, it looks like, because it's December
Yeah.
11th.
Yes.
Okay, so is there any questions, any other questions? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Jeremy Wilson,
Yeah.
Stacy Ramirez,
Yes.
David Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Harness,
Yes.
Samantha McDavid,
Yes.
Sarah Moses,
Yes.
Ari Owens.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
attending.
you.
This is
Thank
very
you.
helpful. Next up is Ms. Tammy Carson, and this is the district fleet replacement cycle.
Thank you. As you all expect, we have a number of vehicles, trucks, and equipment that we use to be able to maintain a district our size. And back in 09, 10, 11, 12, we replaced the majority of our vehicles and trucks and equipment, and haven't done a lot since then, except one here and there. And we're at a point now that we would like to get into a fleet replacement cycle over a 3-year time period to replace several of our vehicles at a time. There is a state purchasing program we can utilize so that we don't have to do competitive bids to get this on the streets. We can do it through the state purchasing. But there's an extremely long lead time, as many things are right now for getting equipment and materials and such. So what we are recommending at this point, as you can see, is we're looking to replace 4 of our vehicles. 3 of them would be with trucks, 1 with a van, as I always call it the super-sized vans. And then with the trucks, we would also be needing plow kits attached to those since we do our own plowing all in-house in the district. So, and in addition to that, we also have 2 food trucks in the district that we utilize on a daily basis to deliver our food, or they're considered box trucks. We actually technically have 3, but one of them is not in service at this point. So we're looking to get rid of that one and then move our oldest box truck and replace it so that we can maintain the schedule that we need to deliver food around to our buildings. We also use it for a lot of moving as needed throughout the district when it's not being used for food service. So at this time, what I'm asking is to bring this back next board meeting for approval to start the fleet replacement. And that will also be based on as budget constraints and what we have available. If we have the funding available still at the end of this year, we will look to fit it into this fiscal year. Otherwise, we'll be working on it for the next fiscal year and then rotating it over the following 2 years.
So, I'm not sure I'm clear what that 38,000 represents for the Super Duties, because I know you're not buying for that.
I'm sorry, which ones?
The 3 trucks, I'm just looking at the numbers. It says 38,430 times 3 for 115,000 for the 3 2022 Ford Super Duties. So is this like a rotation cycle somehow, or how does this work?
Though the 38,000 is what we would be paying through state bid for a truck per truck.
Yours? Really?
Yes.
Man,
We've already priced it out with everything we need in the truck. That it is included. That's the advantage of using the state bidding and being patient and waiting for them to build it to our specs.
Oh, so they, okay. So we are buying brand new, we're not.
Oh, yes.
We're not
yes.
buying used, like 2021?
And no, we would be buying new. We would also then be looking for the vehicles that we're not looking to maintain in our fleet. We would auction those out at a later date, and that could be put back into the, but I can't say what those will go for at this point to really factor that into our decision.
And so the reason is it's built out to our specs.
Excuse me,
It's built
that's
up.
how the state bid works. They're always
Gotcha.
built to spec.
Okay.
So we make sure we get them with the running boards and, you know, the equipment that we need to be able to utilize them. The only thing it doesn't have is the plow kits. Those are the things that we would have to buy locally and have installed locally.
Okay. Questions? Consensus to bring this back for a vote next time?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then next up, request to bid HMS kitchen renovation, Ms. Tammy Carson. This is information and action.
It is, again, because of time sensitivity. As we were designing the bid specs for the HVAC projects that you approved tonight, a large portion of those are at Huntley Middle School, and those also impact the kitchen and the serving area at Huntley. The kitchen and serving area are an area that have not had hardly any renovations as long as any of us can all remember. We've just kind of been getting by, but it is our second production kitchen in the district. And Mike Chamness is here from food service. If there's anything specific to food service, he can answer for you. But they do serve food to 3 other satellite kitchens in the district on a daily basis. What we've determined based on some of the renovations we're doing with HVAC is it would be best to alter those plans that we originally have put out to bid so that we can have a better efficiency and also make sure that we're bringing everything up to code in that kitchen. And so it was at a later time after the bid that we talked about this with the architects, engineer, and Mike's crew, and opted that we wanted to put a plan together to go out to bid to renovate the kitchen slightly. But slightly has some higher price tags to it because anytime you start touching plumbing or the HVAC or the air systems, air handlers, we still have to go out to bid for this. So what we have done, tonight you accepted all 3 HVAC bids, which does incorporate some improvements in the Huntley kitchen. But the contractor that you awarded the bid to has already stated that we would have a change order for approximately $140,000, which would have reduced one of the bids, the 3rd bid that you approved tonight. That money is then a portion of this estimate of $580,000. I will also state that was a very high, quick estimate by our architects and engineers because we wanted to turn this around so quickly. Again, materials, equipment, long timelines. We need to get this on the streets as quickly as possible to see what the actual price comes in at. And then I would come back to you in February with bid results to determine if it's something we do want to move forward with or not. So with that, it'll again bring us up to code on everything as renovations require us to do, as well as improve the efficiencies and the safety in that area. And it says, so if we do this, we would use ESSER funds. Does that take ESSER funds away from a different project that we were already planning? Or I know they're kind of fluid right now because we don't have them all necessarily set on something, but.
No, it does not.
Okay.
Because we have some excess funds that we're trying to fit into there. And the more we know the exact dollar amounts of these things, the easier it is to see how much we have left. So, yeah, no, we're fine.
Thank you. And I will also mention, if we do not move forward with this bid and continue with the HVAC bids as they were designed currently, we really are not going to have a lot of opportunity to make the changes that we would want to do in this project because we're bringing in a certain size air handler and ductwork into an area that we would want to alter with this bid so that down the road it would just be, we'd be tearing out brand new equipment to turn around and try to do this at a later date.
You mentioned as a renovation, is this just an HVAC project, or what are some of the other things that?
There's some other plumbing that's going to be factored in as the equipment and is being removed around, which includes putting in a floor drain, some hood.
New prep sink.
Yeah, new prep sink, some hoods, moving the kettle, number of things which are going to create a more open area. And for example, like we said with the kettle right now, we don't have a floor drain to easily drain it into, so we have to manually drain the kettle, which to me sounds not exactly our safest option, our best option for our staff. So we're looking at a number of these things to just improve the overall efficiency beyond the fact of that the kitchen will end up with air conditioning and better air quality and those things that were already going to be incorporated into this plan.
Okay, thank you.
So it is recommended that the Board of Education approve administration to go out to bid for renovations in the middle school kitchen. Is there a motion? So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Lisa Ramirez.
Yes.
David Seymour.
Yes.
Amanda Harness.
Yes.
Samantha McDavid.
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes.
Ari Owens.
Yes.
Jeremy Olson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is item F. The motion to table.
Yes, I'd like the motion that we remove.
Okay, so there is a motion to table item F. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
David Seymour.
Yes.
Amanda Harness.
Yes.
Samantha McDavid.
Yes.
Sarah Moses.
Yes.
Ari Owens.
Yes.
Jeremy Olson.
Yes.
Lisa Ramirez.
Yes.
Item F is tabled. Next up is item G, additional 4.0 FTE registered nurse position for the remainder of the 21-2022 school year. Kyle Grace.
Hey, good evening.
Hello.
So I'm here to request some additional help for our health offices this school year in the form of 4 additional registered nurses, or what we've referred to in the past as procedural nurses. So these would be nurses that are equipped to support students that have various medical procedures, could be diabetic care, could be various G-tube feedings, things like that. The reason for the request is kind of a few different variables at play. One is obviously the impact of COVID on our health offices and the amount of time and resources that it takes our staff to kind of process through situations where there is a positive case and then all the contact tracing that comes with that. And that's in addition to their normal job responsibilities. What we found is that that process can be very time consuming and pull a lot of resources from the health office, which leaves other things unattended to. And so in addition to that, we've seen an increase in our student enrollment, as well as the staffing shortages that have impacted, I think a lot of industries have also impacted our health offices. So whether it's absences due to personal leave or medical leave or for childcare reasons, what we find ourselves doing almost on a daily basis is trying to figure out how we pull people from other buildings to make sure that there's at least one health professional in each of our school buildings. Up until probably about 2 weeks ago, we had done that pretty successfully, although I personally am concerned with the toll that takes on our staff, because it is kind of they come into work and then they might be asked to go to a different building, and over time I think that kind of weighs on them and impacts their ability to do their job in their home building. Most recently, we've had a few situations where we didn't have anybody to cover a building in person, and so in those situations, the concern about having somebody on site is magnified. So one of the reasons, or one of the ways that I want to go about trying to address this is by adding 4 additional registered nurses that can help with kind of the day-to-day things that COVID brings, the other roles that our nurses play, but then also gives us some flexibility in terms of being able to cover our health offices when people are out for various reasons. The estimated cost for these positions would be for the remainder of this school year, total cost to the district would be around $43,000. In the past, for various reasons, that price might be different, road and get a contract from somebody, in which case I would bring that back to the board for approval. And this would be funded through our ESSER dollars. It would be for the remainder of this school year. As we get closer to the end of the school year, we can really evaluate our needs and what things are looking like heading into the summer and then next school year.
Okay. Questions?
How many FTEs do we currently have for those positions right now?
So we have a good question. So we have a combination of, if we're just talking health office staff, it ranges from health assistants, then we also have our registered nurses, then we have registered nurses with designation, and then we would have our certified school nurses. So it's kind of a one big pot. I don't have the exact FTE off the top of my head, but I do know that additional FTE that the board has approved this year would be for additional health assistants, as well as a COVID nurse. We've had a little success finding health assistants. The COVID nurse we haven't. This would be the first time coming forward asking for a registered nurse role.
And is it?
So what's the ballpark on how many we have now? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get like a percentage here, because I don't know if we're adding 4 FTEs to 4 or if we're adding it to 25, or just trying to get a feel for that.
We have 2 RNs with designation. We have 2 certified school nurses. I believe we have an additional 3 or 4 registered nurses, and then we would have a number, I believe, of 6 or 7 health assistants.
So right
And
now, we
sorry.
don't have a registered nurse, a nurse with designation, or a school certified nurse at each of our buildings.
Correct. The way, and this predates me in this position, but the way we've kind of, from my understanding, just kind of done this is we try to make sure that there's one person in each building. So for our smaller buildings that might have any medical procedures, what we typically would do is have either a certified school nurse or an RN with designation cover the special ed or 504 components of those buildings. But on any given day, it might be a health assistant that's in the building, or a health assistant and an RN that alternate days. So the coverage kind of varies, and it varies by building and need within building. But they all perform different roles and have, like health assistants don't quite have the ability or the training to do some of the things an RN can do.
And how does that impact you when you don't have an RN in the building? What is the result if something happens? Are we calling for help, medical assistance, 911 to get an ambulance, or?
It could be based on the severity of what's going on. The way we've kind of addressed it is like in the event of an emergency, you always call 911. The nice thing about an RN with their medical training is they would be able to do an evaluation of the student and determine severity of what it is, and then make their own professional judgment on what needs to happen next. So that's the preferred way to go for sure.
It looks like we have 8 nurses right now, and you're suggesting we bump that up to 12 for the rest of the year, right? That seems like what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so my thought is that we would definitely add 1 position for the high school. Their volume, even though they have a higher number of staff, I don't think it's quite enough to meet the needs of all the students that are there. And then what we would look at for the other 3 is looking at some of our larger buildings. Elementary-wise, we'd be looking at Founders and probably Cortland getting some extra support. And then we would also look at our 2 middle schools and how we would maybe allocate those FTEs to those middle schools, but also having the ability to float. So if we needed somebody in another building, we can make that call as well.
And again, this will be with ESSER funds, correct?
Correct, yep.
I appreciate you also mentioning, the stress or the added, work that comes with, obviously asking so much of the staff. So thank you to the staff that does that already, but if we could definitely support it, that would be great. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. They're holding it together for us, but I know, not only this year, but going back into when we were back last year, it's been hard on our health office staff, and they're doing a great job in spite of it.
And we appreciate it, and so again, thank you for noting that.
Yeah, thank
Because
you.
it's important.
Any other questions or comments about this? So is there a consensus to bring additional 4.0 FTE registered nurse positions for the remainder of the 21-2022 school year, supported by ESSER funding, back for a vote next meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is information, and this is administrative salary adjustments, principals, assistant principals, deans, and supervisors, managers. Mrs. Salas and Mrs. Carpenter.
So as we've talked since July about the salary study, our salary study looked at LUNA districts like ourselves at different salaries and helped us to determine average salaries for certain positions. As we've taken that information, we've broken it down by different categories in the district at who we're looking at any given time. At this time, we've moved towards the categories that were mentioned by the board president, our supervisors, managers, our principals, our assistant principals, and our deans. We looked at the information that was provided by our consultants, and we've reviewed the current salaries and making recommendations of where to move people to align the salaries to the averages where the board has requested everyone to fall. That information is coming to you as information, and then at the next meeting, upon your approval to bring it back, you will vote on that to adjust the salaries accordingly. Questions?
No?
I don't see dollar amounts.
We're actually going to share with the board, and then the board will bring back the decision through consensus to move forward with that.
Okay, understood.
Okay. So it is recommended that the Board of Education agree by consensus to bring the recommendations forward for approval at the December 14th, 2021 meeting. I guess we don't know what the recommendations are yet, but we go back in to discuss to that because we talked about specific individuals. Okay. So is consensus?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, teacher. Next up is busing concerns. Ms. Cindy Carpenter.
I was just going to read a statement that the district as well as First Student helped to put together, and we do have a couple representatives here from First Student to ask any questions, or be here to if you have any questions or any comments. So, dear DeKalb District 428 families, please accept our sincere apologies for the hardship that canceling bus routes has caused for so many families over the last few weeks. We appreciate your support and the partnership in finding ways to transport your child when you are able. We have continuously strived to do our best to manage the shortage of bus drivers. Daily, we manage more than 100 bus routes, providing a service to DeKalb School District, serving 3 local communities, DeKalb, Malta, and Portland, and several schools outside the boundaries of DeKalb School District. Not being able to fulfill this role at 100% has been a heavy weight to carry for all of us. There are never any easy answers to fix this issue. We are working diligently to minimize the impact and provide as many students as possible with safe and reliable transportation. Special education routes are taking priority and are running as scheduled. Depending on daily staffing levels, other regularly scheduled bus routes may need to be canceled. The decision is based purely on whether or not a driver is available to cover the route. Across the country, there is a great need right now for school bus drivers. Most school districts are reporting severe staffing shortages. Many have had to alter services considerably. First Student increased its pay structure last year, increased sign-on and recruiting bonuses offered, and is providing short-term attendance incentives to retain and recruit new drivers for District 428. First Student currently has 4 potential new bus drivers joining the team soon. It does take time to move an applicant through the hiring process to become a qualified school bus driver. There are strict background checks, licensing requirements, and training standards that must be met to safely operate a school bus. With that being said, our hope is to open more routes back up next week and in the following weeks. We will continue to be creative the best we can without causing any additional hardships on the students, families, and the classroom teachers of District 428. We know this has been very difficult and a great hardship on so many, and for that we do sincerely apologize. Most importantly, we want to convey to you that having your children in school is as important to us as it is to you. Sincerely, DeKalb CUSD 428 and First Student. So we really just wanted to put that out there. It has been very difficult for families, and I know First Student has been working very diligently and hard to provide the transportation to our families. And things are looking better, so we've had more additional routes that were put in place this week, and hopefully we will see more coming soon as well. So we've minimized, or we're at a low point in terms of how many routes that are currently not running. So, I don't know if you have any questions or any information you want from First Student directly?
So I have a question. I know that we got a letter from the Social Justice Discussion Committee. I think it was a discussion group at Clinton Rosette Middle School with concerns about, how this was impacting different student groups in terms of, who was able to come to school regularly and who was not able to come to school regularly. And they had mentioned a solution that Rockford School District, the school districts are using in Rockford, where they are, adjusting the bus route so that even if a route is canceled, that those kids, different students, different routes are canceled at different times so that there's always like a rotation. So all children are at least getting to school a similar amount of time versus like one group of kids who, their bus routes canceled consistently, and this group gets to go all the time, this group's not going at all. So are there any solutions like that we're looking at to potentially support students, getting more regular school time?
My name is Liddell Cass. I'm the area general manager for the First Student, and Cindy had brought that up with me last Friday, and I've reached out to Mike's Life, the director for Rockford. I live closer to that community, and I believe what they're actually doing with their regularized transportation is for the same student population, they're actually routing less buses. So if they can accommodate, in a normal time, if there's 200 buses to accommodate that population, they're actually setting the transportation for, let's say, 175 routes, and then they're assigning more students per bus than the bus will carry. And then they're assigning a certain percentage of the population to not ride each week. So on a rotational basis, over a course of a month, each kid, let's say, may not ride the bus for 1 week. So it's, in that way, it's a pure distribution. It affects everyone in the district. I think it was chaos out of the gate, like there were a lot of questions in the community about whether that was the right solution. But with the shortage that they had in the summer, I think they were 50 short at one time, on about 200, 225 routes. It was something they thought was necessary. I have reached out to Mike this week. I have not heard back, further detail, but as we get more detail about how they did it, we'll have to work with our routes are routed out of First Planning Solutions in Montana for the DeKalb location. So we'll have to plug into them to see what that might look like. I think at this point, so through the month of October, one of the stresses we've been short, right? And I think that's been knowledge out of the gate this year. With absenteeism related to COVID quarantine and those impacts, it definitely got a lot worse in October. I think as of this week, Jason, is it about 4 routes that aren't running on a daily basis?
We're down to 2 full routes that are not running and 2 half routes.
Okay. We have 4 people testing tomorrow at the DMV, so that normally it takes about 30 days to get someone from interview to driver's seat on their own, maybe 30 to 40 days. It's almost double that right now because of the bottlenecks within all of those systems. So we do have 4, we have another maybe 8 in training, in various stages of training. So we're optimistic that we're heading in the right direction, but we still have a long way to go to get back to normal.
Can you explain the bidding process? When a bus driver has, they have a bid
For the route?
for the route.
Sure. Our drivers are organized and it's seniority based. So when we bid routes each year, the senior most person gets to pick. Usually they're picking an hour package that's greater. In some cases, they're picking routes that are more desirable. Maybe, a certain school has, maybe they give out cookies every Friday. There's all sorts of, there are things out there like that actually. So, and then there are routes that are left over. Often in some markets, and I don't know about at this location, but in some markets we've seen certain types of sped routes, maybe for this, behavior-related programs that are left and not picked during the bid process. They're not as desirable by drivers that are bidding, and so there are routes that are left in our bid picks each year, and those usually are filled as we hire more people to our roles.
And are there any motivational ways to get folks to bid on those routes that are less desirable?
In some cases, things that have been tried, there have been hour or wage incentives put on some of those routes. We actually have some built into our CBA. There are premiums added to hourly rate for certain types of routes, so there are some things already organically there. In some cases, if it's related to behavior, often adding an assistant or a monitor to those routes for a period of time, that often helps fill or calm the environment and get people to want to be on those routes. We are struggling actually right now. We're also short beyond drivers. We're also short monitors or attendants. So that's something that's impacted our student management for the district.
So,
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm more curious, back to the incentive piece. I look back at last year when buses weren't running at all, we still paid, I think, 80% of our contract to you. And now those same taxpayers that paid 80% of our contract for your business to survive, their kids aren't going to school. And so, to me, that's a little frustrating. So if this is a financial thing and you have to pay people, so eventually you're going to get to a place where you can pay people enough they're going to get on the bus. Why isn't that being done?
I think right now the challenge is understanding what that means. And we work in all sorts of markets. We have markets where, our new CBA in the summer of 2020 was ratified in July. By September, we took all those rates up already. So after 6 months of negotiation, the first thing we did 2 months later is we took rates up further. Ultimately, the number one cost of what we do for a district is compensation. And if we're making changes to affect the situation or improve the situation, they have to make sense. Ultimately, that's something that in a bid process that comes to play with our pricing back to a district. We're struggling to understand right now what fills the seats. And, our basic package is, 2 hours AM, 2 hours PM. Our starting rate is up to 20 now, or up to 18 now. Top rates are over 20. People can, they build longer than 4 hours a day. But in other markets where we've done some aggressive things, we're still struggling. And it's not just in DeKalb. When they talk national and we're talking across Northern Illinois, as we sit across 23 locations, we're over 300 drivers short, and that's after we've reduced a significant amount of routes this year just to be able to function daily. So I think the true shortage across Northern Illinois is closer to 1,000 or over 1,000 across 23 locations, 24 locations. All markets were hit. I will say, you bring up a great point, and this is a hard one. We've got some numbers to show that with what we did with compensation last school year, we had more applicant flow on a percentage basis at our DeKalb location than we did at a lot of other locations. In markets where we pay drivers all or most of the year, we actually suffered less than what we've seen in some other locations. I have access to, out of 7 locations that I represent, there were 2 that did. Across Northern Illinois, the overall group, it was a very small number who had driver compensation in place. But when you look at the numbers that I see for Northern Illinois and Wisconsin, where drivers were paid, those locations actually had less loss than the ones that did not.
And how large of a company is First Student National?
I think on the school bus side alone right now, we're around, including candidates, around 60,000 routes.
And so you're a pretty sizable company. And I guess my concern here is you're in the business of busing.
Yes.
I'm in a different business. But either way, if I can't produce, my company is going to struggle. And we don't have a lot of options on our end in terms of what to do here. So I guess all I'm hearing right now, and I understand this isn't your fault specifically, but your organization doesn't seem to have a plan or a strategy. I'm hearing we still don't know. We don't know, and we don't know. That's not consoling me because we're writing checks and our kids are not getting to school.
Understood.
So when are we going to hear a plan? And when are we going to know what's going to happen moving forward? That's what I would like to know. And I know I'm speaking for myself, maybe not necessarily the rest of the board. This is important.
I would agree with that too. It's critical that we get our kids to school. We've got to figure this out. And that's, I would agree with that.
Where we are at this point is we are trying to understand what changes we can make to incentivize people to work for us. I think that's where we're at across locations. With the changes we made last year, we tripled our new hire bonus this summer. I think the speculation was that we were going to see more people fly back to the market once the unemployment incentives went away. We saw a slight bump August into September. It hasn't changed beyond that. And I think that's what, we thought we were on track. And at this point, we have to regroup and understand what additional incentives we put in place. Do we go to $20 an hour starting? Is that going to do it? I mean, ultimately, though, we're locked in, and that's where we have to be careful with the commitment to it, because if that doesn't do it, and if that's not the answer, then why did we do it, and how do we get out of it? It's not, and ultimately, what I've shared with Cindy is that we need to talk through some of the options that we have further, because at some point, this impacts the district.
I'm hearing what you're saying, but unfortunately, I don't hear an alternative either, right? Obviously, you don't know if $20 is going to work, granted, but what else is going to work, right? There isn't a plan B. There's no other alternative. So, whatever you guys have to do is what you have to do to run your business and to provide the services that we've contracted for. And right now, we're not getting it. And I know that's rough, because I've watched a lot of friends' businesses go under during this pandemic, and it's not been pretty and it's not fun, and I don't like having these conversations, but at the end of the day, we're responsible for getting our kids to school. So at the very least, I would like you to come back at least to our next meeting with a plan or strategy on how you're going to fix this.
Fair.
Can I ask? Oh.
Just on behalf of the company, we are absolutely sorry for where things are. It is not our plan A for sure. We take pride in what we do in the communities. I know Jason and his team have worked hard to rebuild, and we entered the pandemic much better than we are coming out of it right now. And we are sorry for the service to the school district and all the constituents.
Can I ask, we've kind of maxed out like combining routes and things like that?
Yeah, we have, and I think that's where things really hit in October, because there was a reduction to start the year to maximize routes that took things from a normal route number of about 95 down to, I think, 74.
Right.
So that compression was maximizing the schedules that existed.
What about even adding, even if kids are getting to school late, an hour late, they're still getting to school for a full day. So what if we add a third tier to busing? Is that a possibility? Maybe something to think about. And I say that having been a bus driver with Jason, I worked at that first student, and knowing that was a very hard job when it wasn't a pandemic, and when we didn't see as many of the social, emotional, trauma-induced issues that we are seeing and behaviors that we're seeing. It was a very hard job, and so I want to just say I do appreciate all the bus drivers that are hanging in there and doing the job every day. It's really, really appreciated, because it's so important to get our kids to school. We know that even one day missed compounds then loss of learning that's already compounded by the pandemic, and so just trying to make sure that we are getting them there, even if it's late, even if we have to add, something.
And we would have to think about too if they're coming late, because I was thinking about that as well. We would have to think about then they're going to be going home late.
Yeah.
And we would have to somehow rotate that, but we'd also have to have care for those kids after school.
And that's what I'm
I
talking
just
about.
I haven't thought that through at all. I'm just throwing it out there, something.
What's another plan other than just, what we're doing
So
now?
I will say that we currently do that where we can. We have actually tried different things, but understand that, like you said, everything you do is a domino effect.
Yeah.
So every move you make impacts someone else. So that's where we have to be careful. We do piggyback, what we call piggyback, so that we can pick up a group of kids and take them even home. But it's a strenuous, process, to get the parents to buy in.
I say that as a parent who knows my kids were bused because of a major street that separates us from the school, not necessarily because it's too far to walk, and knowing that they don't get home until almost 4:30 some nights, when it's a few blocks from their school. So I do understand the complications in that, but I hear what Jeremy's saying though, just throw us something, some kind of plan.
We had talked about that on
Yeah.
a greater scale, and to do it where it would, where affect and actually get ahead of the current number that we have, the current number of people, it would require a much greater impact to the district and, you know, to education schedules, like it would really disrupt the cost building. So it's something that could be modeled to understand, and that's why we work with a routing group versus having, you know, relying on one individual at the location. They can take on those challenges more quickly than we can.
And I don't want you to think that we're not an empathetic group. I think what we did last year in approving 80% of our contract showed that. It's just now we're sort of back to more of the same with this contract, and we need some options. So yeah, anything that you guys can throw at us, we would consider. We gotta come up with something, because this isn't working, and I appreciate your sorry, but that doesn't address the issue. So if you could come back with some options or some ideas, or maybe try paying people a little bit more and see if that works. You know, obviously maybe that gets handed down to us in future contracts, so be it. But we got to get them to school.
The three polls we've seen, and this is often a question that boards ask, where are people going? Full-time employment, better benefits packages overall. That's about a third. I think from what I see of their statistics, there are maybe close to a third that have just walked away, fear of COVID, retirement, that sort of thing. And there's a large group that's moved away from this area. So I think those are the three drivers that I've seen that's impacted his team over the last 12 months, 18 months.
And we see a whole lot of candidates that start the process, but they get logged into the DMV.
Right.
I have people that are spending 8 hours at the DMV multiple times, and they're still not getting through. And that's something that we can't control. We try different DMVs. I mean, we're driving different places. So that part, getting them in the door, that is really, really tough. We're not giving up, and we're working every single day at it, but that probably is one of the biggest frustrations, getting people in the doors, that we are dependent upon the state to support us, to help us get through. And I personally, I'm a state instructor, and I took on extra work to try to help the initiation process, which not only helps us, but also helps other school districts in our county. And I've even went outside of our county to help, because I understand those log jams that happen, but when they get to the DMV, dead stop. I had a guy yesterday that told me he was sent away. He went to get his test, and they told him, we're understaffed, go somewhere else, or come back next week.
So obviously, like this, I mean, we're at a point, you know, where you're having problems finding solutions, and it's like, what else can we do as a district to come up with solutions to this problem? What else can we do as, you know, on our end? I mean, can we figure out some type of like carpooling, you know, sign up with parents, or is there something that we can, you know, how can we bridge the gap if we just can't get buses to kids? Then how can we get kids to school? Like what creative solutions, you know, can we think up as a district to solve this?
As a collective.
And I think that's happening organically. I mean,
It is,
It is.
yes.
And, you know, we'll have that parent transportation reimbursement that's ready to get kicked off, and send out the parents to just help. I mean, if they, you know, if you want to call it Uber, although again, there's a lot of safety issues too. I mean, these are your kids.
Certainly.
And
Certainly.
so, you know, you want to be real careful as to who's driving them to school. And,
Yep.
and so that's what's difficult, because it's, you know, we've got a lot of students, and is there one solution that's going to work? Probably
Sure.
not. It's going to be kind of a variety of things in the community, helping each other and picking each other up as well. So,
But if we did have some type of like carpool sign up through the district where, you know, you had parents signing permission slips saying, you know, I'm okay with my kid riding with so-and-so, and if there's a situation like that or a circumstance that would work, or, I mean, I don't know, have we reached out to VAC? Is that a possibility? Are they?
I know everybody's been feeling, I mean, even like the growing place, they're having difficulty just getting their little buses running as
Or
well.
even NIU, I
Yeah, I was
mean,
gonna say
even
about-
the bus service.
Yeah, and I've looked into Husky bus lines as well, so, yeah. But I mean, there's various options we can look at, I mean, and then also work in conjunction with First Student too, to see if there's some creative ways that we could take care of some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard. It's just, again, the domino effect. It's like you.
Well, I know it's not just you, Cynthia. I'm
Yeah.
not- You know, I mean, this is like.
No,
this is a-
absolutely. No, this is,
obviously.
yeah, it is not optimal for sure. Absolutely not.
yeah.
I mean, we lose a lot of sleep over this. I mean, because we worry. We worry that the kids aren't getting to school.
Right.
That's not what we do.
The other thing we have to consider is liability.
Of course.
Right?
Oh, yes.
So, you know,
Always.
if somebody
Yeah.
says, I'll drive the kids and then something happens.
Well, that's why I'm saying it would
Yeah.
have to be like a parent permission slip saying, you know, you would have to have parent buy-in to do anything. And I don't know all the legalities around that, but at least throwing out solutions and ideas, and then we can look into you know, the logistics and the legalities and.
I just feel like that there's a couple of options, like a third tier that we can think about. We also talked about switching, and I know that you guys had that conversation from Friday, right? About switching some around so that we can get.
So yeah, like
groups.
rotating some of the.
Right, so rotation. So I think that we need to make sure that we've exhausted those opportunities or those options before, while we're still trying to be innovative, thinking outside the box of what other opportunities might be there. So, you know, and we're open to hearing from anybody. The community has, you know, viable options that we can consider. I'm more than happy to hear from you all to let us know what that looks like.
No, absolutely, yeah. And it's not, you know, and that doesn't make it any better that it's not just us, but yet all districts are struggling, and I've reached out to other school business officials, what are they doing? And they're having the same struggles, and just really just trying to come up with any options that would work, so. Yeah.
Thank you for everything and looking into things as well. We really appreciate it. Also, publicly, I want to say thank you to all the parents that have volunteered to take their other kids to school. I mean, I've seen it on Facebook.
Yeah.
I even volunteered myself. 2 people reached out. So I didn't mind it, but I also recognize that I have the privilege of, having a car where other people may not necessarily have that. So it really is going to take a community to get us there. So I appreciate the patience, and I know it's frustrating, but I also appreciate the Clinton Rosette Middle School Social Justice Discussion Group and bringing this to our attention as a possible option, because it is important, and we hear you, and we are definitely working to try to see putting our creative thinking hats on so that we could try to get somewhere. So please know that we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Cindy Carpenter again. And this is the approval of the estimated tax levy for 2021 tax year.
Alrighty. Oh, that wasn't great. Hold on a second.
Is it too hot in here?
It's weird, it's like my top is hot, but my feet are cold.
It's at 77.
It's hot. My feet are cold.
We're all coming from.
Right. Oh, God. Don't say that. Here's our facilities person.
Fix it for good.
Well, we'll get started here on the 2021 tax levy request. Back at our meeting in October, I went through a presentation that had some additional information about the tax levy. That's in your board docs if you wanted to look back. And this is more abbreviated because we've got that background, and now we're actually looking at the tax levy request tonight that we would need to approve, and then we come back in December for the actual adoption. So here's our levy calendar. Just like we had in the last presentation, we approve our request tonight. We have to post it in the paper no more than 14 days or no less than 7 days prior excuse me, to the public hearing. We hold our public hearing on December 14th, and then we adopt the levy that same evening. And then we need to file the levy with the county clerk by the last Tuesday in December, which is December 28th of this year. And I actually walked that into the clerk's office and watched him stamp it.
I'll be joining you this time.
Oh, that's right. We will go there together. We'll bring some chocolate or something.
Yes.
So the property tax extension limitation law, I covered this last time as well, just as a reminder that we fall under this particular legislation, which a lot of people call it the tax cap legislation, but basically what it's doing is it's capping the extension that you can ask for on a year-to-year basis. And not all counties are under this particular law. We have Ogle County, which is just to the west of us, and LaSalle to the south that are not under this, so they have a little more flexibility year to year. There's the three things that change our tax levy each year. Three variables are the consumer price index, new property growth, including any TIF increment that's being recovered, which is a big piece of what's going on in our tax levy this particular cycle. And then any change in the district's annual debt service or our debt payment for our buildings, those types of things. And for this year, the tax extension can only increase by the consumer price index, CPI, 1.4% for this tax levy year, or 5%, whichever is less. So obviously, we're looking at that 1.4% number. So some tax levy considerations. I'm always in contact with the assessor during this time of year to see what sort of estimates that they have, because everything we do right now is based on estimates. So as of November 8th, the rate setting equalized assessed value is about $914 million, which is a 13.3% increase from our 2020 number. And the reason for that is because we have some new growth, which includes Ferrer Candy, which is just to the south of us. So that is inclusive of why we're seeing this big jump in EAV, which is very unusual. Usually it's much less than this. Also, part of Ferrer Candy does have a 50% abatement agreement, tax abatement agreement for the enterprise zone agreement that was passed a number of years back. Also, within our EAV increase is we have the DeKalb Central TIF that expired. And so now that increment, that growth that has been occurring over the last, it's been about 30 years that TIF has been around. We've got about $59.1 million coming back onto our tax rolls that we have access to. And then also we have a small 3M abatement of about $500,000 that this is the last year that they're in that abatement agreement. And we also have some good news in terms of the state property tax relief grant. If you recall, back in 2021, there were no additional dollars allocated to this grant because of the COVID fund of things happening with COVID. But in 2022, they do have $50 million available allocated for the grant. And this was part of when we went to evidence-based funding. Part of that legislation included this $50 million that they're going to allocate annually for property tax relief. For us, CUSD428 out of 840 plus school districts, we're 37 on the list, meaning that we'll qualify for the grant. We would receive $5.4 million from the state to support the property tax relief, and then we have to abate $5.8 million. So we will have to take some money out of our operating funds, only about $350,000. So like I mentioned, we're in line to qualify for this grant, and we are required to abate property taxes for this tax levy year, 2021, which affects our 22-23 budget, and then also for the 22 tax levy year, which affects our 23-24 budget. So we'll be going through the same process at this time next year. Then after we get the initial grant of the $5.4 million, that $5.4 million gets added into our evidence-based funding formula. So in the next year, we have access to those dollars in that formula to support the 22 abatement. And then after that, it's in our evidence-based funding from now until they decide to change the formula. Hopefully they don't, because this formula has actually been very, very good for us. So after that 2-year abatement, the funds are unencumbered and available for use for other purposes, or to continue to do abatements as well if we wanted to. So here a summary of where we're at in terms of our estimate for 2021. Our rate setting equalized assessed value from last year was about $806 million. And as of this November 8th date, we have existing property growth up to $827 million. And then you can see the different pieces of increase in EAV, which is the regular new growth, which includes Ferrer as well as the TIF recovery of the $59 million. So right now, we're estimating our equalized assessed value, our rate setting equalized assessed value, so this is basically the number we use to calculate our tax rate, is about 900 and just shy of 913, 14 million. And our TIF recovery and new growth is 86.7 million. Typically, we see, without all these other new things coming, we'll see new growth of like $2.5 to $3 million a year. So this is very unusual. This is kind of a one-time infusion for us. So the estimated change in our EAV from the prior year is $107 million, and then which is about a 13.3% increase, which again is a fairly decent increase. And here is just a little more of a tax levy calculation breakdown, so you can see how much more money we can request because of the various pieces of the tax levy calculation. So for the CPI increase, which is the 1.4%, that is about $744,000 of the total additional dollars we could receive, and which gives us an operating rate of 6.522%. Then we also have the estimated increase, and what this increase is the actual dollar amount that we can receive, not necessarily EAV, but extra dollars that the district can receive from the new growth is about 1.7 million. And you can see from that recovered TIF about 3.8 million. So you can see the breakdown of the different various things and how much more money we could receive because of those one-time infusions. So in totality, with the growth from inflation, the growth from additional property, and then the recovered TIF, it's about $6.4 million in additional revenue, which would make our estimated operating extension just shy of 60 million, 59.5 million. Then that's the operating extension. Then we look at what our debt service is, and our bonded interest levy for the 2022-23 budget year is about 6.9 million. That's how much, basically what that means is that's how much principal and interest we have to pay on our bonds for 22-23. If we subtract the abatement that we're receiving from the state, then the net that's actually going to be levied for is about 1.2 million. So the 5.7 million is not going to be taxed to the taxpayer. It's just the 1.2 million. So that gives us a total operating rate of 6.6496%. So this is really the guts of the tax levy request based on the estimates from the assessor that I just went through. If everything was basically perfect and this is where we ended up, this is what our operating extension would look like. We would see a $6.4 million increase in the operating levy, but then you can see we have a substantial decrease in our bond and interest levy by $2.6 million because of that property tax relief grant and not having to levy for the entire amount. So our total estimated levy would be $60.7 million, an increase of about $3.7 million or 6.2% or 6.62%. What we do with the levy request is we add a little extra because we just don't know if there's going to be other things that hit the EAV from now until they finalize things in March. So we call that ballooning things. And that's just so we don't leave money on the table, let's say. You know, we want to make sure that we're asking for enough, but they're only going to give us based on the detailed calculation. So the various things in terms of the request we're looking for here is we are capturing the increase for inflation, the 1.4%, and the new growth, including that TIF EAV that's being recovered. It does include, again, that bond and interest tax abatement of the $5.7 million that's being funded through the property tax relief grant, and we will have to fund a little bit of that ourselves, about $350,000. The debt service levy, like I mentioned before, we need to pay $6.9 million. We're going to get abated of $5.7 million, so we're only going to levy for the $1.2 million. And when this is all said and done, the estimated total tax rate is 6.6496%. Our actual tax rate last year was 7.0649%, so we actually have a decrease in our tax rate. And based on that tax rate, if we're looking at a homeowner, if their house was worth $150,000 market value in 2020, it's looking like about a $99 decrease in their tax bill for the 2021 property tax levy. So I always go through this because I think it's important to know that we've done a lot of things the last few years to mitigate the effect on the taxpayer, including, and this is even before we knew of property tax relief grant funds and all those things. We were taking money out of our operating funds to abate the bond and interest levy. We did that in 2018 for $1.7 million. In 2019, we also received a property tax relief grant, so we did the same thing. We abated about $5 million for our 2019 and 2020 levy. And then we also went through a multi-year bond restructuring process, which incorporated some of these property tax relief grant dollars. And then we also we had got $3 million in some TIF surplus funds that we used to pay down principal, so we're paying less interest on those funds. And we did the same thing in 2020 when we were refunding. We used $10 million from our reserves to pay down principal. So again, these are dollars that the taxpayer is not paying. We took those out of our operating funds to support that. And then remember, last year at this time, the board chose not to increase the operating levy by the Consumer Price Index, which was 2.3% in that particular year, which is a $1.2 million reduction in our levy for 2020, and then every year thereafter, because if you don't levy for it in 1 year, the effect is a cumulative effect, because then our jumping off point is less. So really that's a permanent cumulative savings to the taxpayer, but also a permanent cumulative reduction to D428 revenue. But that is what we decided to do for that particular levy cycle to help the taxpayer. And here I just wanted to give an example of if there was a $150,000 market value home in 2016, and if we apply the increase in EAV over the years on that particular home, you can see here in 2017, the taxable EAV is about 1/3 of the market value, less a $6,000 home exemption. So here you see the taxable EAV, which is the number that is used, that the tax rate is applied to get to what the tax bill is. So you can see over this period of time that we've been doing these taxpayer savings, the cumulative savings for someone with this home is over about $1.1 thousand. I mean, $1,100 basically that we've saved the taxpayer over this period of time. So we've been doing a lot to really mitigate the effect to the taxpayer. And that's it. I don't know if there's any questions or. Again, we'll bring this back. Tonight what we do is we approve the levy request and put that out in the paper, then actually have a hearing and then the adoption at the next meeting. And we can actually make tweaks to it at that time too, because I'll get more information from the assessor by then too, just to make sure we're on track with everything.
Anybody have questions or comments?
Thanks, Ed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You just do the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we have to approve it, right?
Yeah. Look at that. Thank you. All right. So, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the proposed tax levy request for the 2021 tax year for publication. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Samantha McDavid?
Yes.
Sarah Moses?
Yes.
Ariel Owens?
Yes.
Jeremy Olson?
Yes.
Lisa Ramirez?
Yes.
David Seymour?
Yes.
Amanda Harris?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is subject K, board protocols, which is D. I'm going to go ahead and motion to table this because we have not gotten to talk about those board protocols in their fullness, or their entirety, and that's what we'll be doing in that board self-evaluation on the 2nd. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Sarah Moses?
Yes.
Ariel Owens?
Yes.
Jeremy Olson?
Yes.
Lisa Ramirez?
Yes.
David Seymour?
Yes.
Amanda Harris?
Yes.
Samantha McDavid?
Yes.
And then next up is the superintendent reports and presentation.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We have the state of the school address that we'd like to share with everyone. So this is the data that we have collected since we've been here. And so I'd like to call your attention to the PowerPoint presentation. I'll make sure I am running, so welcome. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the agenda quickly, welcome, and then we'll do a vision mission, district priorities, director updates, beginning of the year, BOY data, and then any questions or Q&A that we can do with you all. Am I too far? Okay.
It doesn't like it.
Currently, this is our current vision and mission. As board members have mentioned, there is an updated version that is being discussed and reviewed based on all of the work that the town halls have come together to discuss, and along with feedback. So this is currently our vision and our mission. Our district priorities are connected to the core values as determined through town halls and the convergence with the school board. They are the student achievement, community engagement and marketing, financial stability with equity lens, human capital, recruitment, development, and retainment. Then there are 2 links. One is for the strategic plan that is priority driven by data and the work through the committees. And then there is the district committees, and both of those are live links. The district committees are committees that are driven and or facilitated by unaffiliated and affiliated staff, and are based, there were up to 32 different committees. Those have been reviewed and some of them had been eradicated. However, the work between those committees have now been fulfilled in other parts of, in other committees. So the work is still being done, it's just going through a different committee. Those are available so that you could see who is on each one of those committees, how many folks are there, and what their purpose is, and who the facilitators are. So up next, I'd like to have Cindy Carpenter, the Director of Business and Finance, to do a review of her bullets.
So just really quickly, we again received our Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from GFOA and ASBO, so 2 organizations that kind of oversee what we do in business offices here at the school district and for governments, and for the fiscal year 20, and that's our 11th consecutive year of doing that, which is everybody else in that process. It's a great report. It's a big and long report, so if everybody, but I encourage people to take a look at it. There's a lot of great history in there, a lot of good statistics. If you're a data person, it's awesome data to look at. So, and then we will continue to, on that path, now that we're there, we're going to keep it going. So we will, again, when our audit is just about completed, almost done, and then we're working on our comprehensive annual financial report for that year and submitting it again. And then also we continue to work on our ESSER 3 budget. That's been kind of a long process, just because we do have a pretty substantial number of dollars that we need to, that have been allocated to us, and we want to make sure we're using it appropriately. You've heard ESSER a lot with a lot of budget requests. And those are looked at pretty carefully to make sure that they fit within the requirements of that grant, as well as it's, is it something that is going to be a one-time expenditure, or is it going to be something that is sustainable, and making sure that we can incorporate that into our actual budget and the ESSER budget. So
Thank you,
we're
Cindy.
in a nutshell right now.
Thank you, Cindy. All right, up next is Curriculum and Instruction Director, Kimberly Locke. Nice. Okay. Doesn't like me. Oh, there, okay.
There's a lot that's been happening in curriculum and instruction. These are just a couple of the highlights based on the strategic plan. Professional learning has just started taking place about math talks, and a little background on that is it's conversations that students are having about math to increase their vocabulary, to increase them to struggle with and their background, and bring forward more information into solving problems. Oral literacy, it works on that skill as well. Another thing that we're working on, the humanities department at the high school has been making progress on their audit of seeing if they have all the Common Core state standard shifts, and if they don't, where can we add those in our curriculum so that the curriculum's more rigorous. And those are things, example, like academic vocabulary, making sure we have a lot of nonfiction, informational texts, helping kids to pull text evidence for their writing and their reading. So those types of things, and I understand it's going very well, and they're finding more we have it than we don't, which is a great thing when you're doing an audit. This past Institute Day in October, there was a professional learning session for secondary on, you will hear the words DOK in the district coming up over the next semester, but it's called depth of knowledge. And so they started that already in secondary, looking at assessments. And basically that's the 4 levels of that you look at with students, and making sure we give them content at 4 levels. So for example, level 1 would be, I ask you to recite a math fact. Level 4 is more in depth and asks students to do more for basically, like, it could be a problem where it has real world things they're solving in there, they're bringing in other subject areas, and it's taking everything and condensing it. It makes the students have to really, really, really problem solve. So we want to make sure of the 4 levels, we're going to expose our kids more to 3 and 4, which is what a lot of our teachers do. And a lot of the assessments that they put in front of our students are levels 3 and 4. So we want to give them more opportunities to do well on that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, there's a menu of supports that was put together to help in elementary for balanced literacy. It is a phenomenal document. If you'd like to see it, it's just amazing. And basically it has on there the components of balanced literacy that are expected to be taught in our elementaries, but it also has presentations that many of our teachers have done for professional development. It has research articles to back up why are we using guided reading or why are we doing shared reading. It has videos for staff to offer support if they need help doing instruction, and some of those videos are our staff doing it, modeling for other staff. It's a phenomenal document that it'll continually be updated. Jill wanted me to share that we'll continue to add to it so that the teachers have supports.
Thank you, Kim. Facilities and safety, Tammy Carson, Director.
Most of my projects usually come forth to you, so you already know about them, but just a little bit of background on one large one that you approved tonight, and that's the Education Center remodel and an HVAC project. We did incorporate the flooring and painting and some other remodels. So starting October of next year, if you weren't aware, we will be moving out of the Ed Center and completely everything will be removed, and we'll be out for about 6 months, and we're finding some locations at NIU where we're working remotely for that. That project will last about 6 months starting next year. So in addition to that, our other bid projects that are not HVAC projects are going out to bid in December and January, so those results will be coming forward. Those include some flooring throughout the district, some asphalt concrete projects, and then some other smaller projects that are out there. One project that is underway that's not up there is the Alpha Energy Efficiency Project, which you approved earlier this year, where we were going to be looking at saving approximately $250,000 to $280,000 a year in energy savings. Those projects get started a little bit ahead of schedule, so we're going to be able to take advantage of some additional energy incentives that were available by completing some of these before the end of the year. More information will be coming out so we can show you how those projects have impacted our bottom line. We'll be able to show you those in the future. For safety, the only thing I'm going to mention is that you approved the bid, the RFP for the safety audit. I'm anxious to find out who we'll be working with on that, and working together with Ben and the others in our safety task force and our administration to identify areas of improvement, see what we can do to help across the district.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, Ms. Deidre Salas, you're up. Human Resources.
So Human Resources, busy like everyone else, but we are building partnerships with educational programs to create a pipeline of grow our own candidates. We're looking to take folks from paraprofessional to teaching positions, working with NIU, working with programs such as Golden Apple, and partnering with other districts to make this financially solvable for our employees. Enhancements to the onboarding and offboarding process for our district staff. We're looking to incorporate more technology. Like everybody, we learned through COVID that we need to be flexible and agile and able to meet the needs of people, whether they're in front of you or afar. And then finally, continuing to build and enhance relationships between administration and collective bargaining groups through a variety of opportunities, whether it's labor relations or working to solve problems or to identify opportunities for growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Deidre. Improvement Innovation Building Director.
Hi, good evening. In terms of my department, we'll be having a conversation with stakeholders starting in December to make sure that we're updating the strategic plan based on the needs that are being surfaced at schools. So the strategic plan is a living document, and we want to make sure we're responsive to the needs that are growing and showing up now. So just foreshadowing that there will be some changes. There's also a school improvement plan work group that's been started by myself and a couple of other folks in curriculum and instruction. We're working really closely with school leaders to revamp the school improvement process, looking to shift more towards school-driven school improvement plans than more district-directed. The other piece is the MTSS work group. I've identified members to join the work group, and also identified 9 exemplar frameworks from across the country that we'll be taking a look at to possibly adjust or adopt for our own MTSS framework. The last piece is social media engagement. This is baseline data for Facebook and Twitter. As of 11/9, that's last Tuesday, we have 4,300 followers on Facebook, and from August 1st to November 9th, over 15,000 profile views. On Twitter, we have nearly 1,000 followers. Again, that was as of last Tuesday, and we nearly have 5,000 profile visits, again, from August 1st to November 9th.
Thank you, Phil. Student Services, Director Coggers.
So I'm going to touch on, there's a lot going on within the realm of student services. I'm going to touch on the things that align to some of the work we have within our strategic plan. So far this year, we've been providing professional learning on restorative practices, which is essentially, I'm going to oversimplify it a little bit, but the way that we form, maintain, and repair relationships between individuals and between the school community. We've been providing that training to our administrators, our teachers, and our assistants, and that work will be ongoing. We are currently working on our internal audit of how we are writing our IEP goals, and those would be individualized education plans for students that receive special education services. At our October Institute Day, our staff received, the staff that are responsible for writing those goals and reporting out our progress received training that was really well received. The idea behind that is that if we are able to identify a way where we're writing SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, oh my gosh, the R, relatable, relevant, relatable, and then time bound. So if we're able to write goals in that way, then we're able to monitor student growth, and then we have a way to look back and say, okay, are our students making progress, or we need to change our approach for our instructional practices. And then last but not least, our teachers and our assistants have received training and coaching related to supporting students in crisis. Most recently, we provided a professional development opportunity that provided some content, but also a lot of time for collaboration and sharing of ideas among staff that was really well received. Some of those professional learning opportunities will continue into December and second semester when we continue to focus on trauma-informed strategies or practices.
Thank you. All right, Ben Bale, Director of Technology.
Good news!
Wonderful news!
We received $996,000 from the FCC based on a grant we wrote. Those funds are directly impacting our students and our families. We were able to use those funds to tackle the digital divide, the homework gap, so that's for our families without internet access. And we have enough funding that will continue us all the way until June of 2022. So that's our funding piece there, as well as our 22-23 school year Chromebook rotation cycle. It covered the vast majority of those costs, again, not being the general fund and also offsetting the burden from taxpayers. The remaining laptops for secondary teachers have arrived, and those are being rolled out at DeKalb High School currently. And as we get the devices back from DeKalb High School, those are trickling down, and we will be mobilizing our entire workforce with mobile devices. Our 2 additional IT support specialists FTE have started, and the turnaround time and our closure rates within the help desk ticketing system, we're already seeing vast improvement. So we literally just needed additional FTE to tackle all these sort of things where like teachers like, hey, we need more tech sort of things that we're going to do. They're innovative. It's like, that's awesome. Let's do it. But we need people. So we got the people, and now we're making progress. So staff, students, and families are receiving quicker response times to their needs. And that, again, ties to our just-in-time delivery of support and services to not just our students and staff, but also our families. And then core services and infrastructure that everything runs on, we have been able to maintain an uptime 98% or better. So everything is running as it should, and we'll hope it continues. That's what I got.
Thank you, Ben. Great news. All right, Mr. Peter Goff.
Good evening again. Great news from us. Since 1977, the boys cross country team had not advanced to state, and they did it this year.
Yay!
So they finished 23rd in the state. DHS junior Riley Newport finished 3rd out of the top 6. He was the only junior, so high hopes for him for next year. He did break the school record for the 3 miles since 1976. It was in 14 minutes and 15 seconds. I don't think I could have made it down the hill that fast. But he broke a record from 1976 from 14, it was 14:15. He broke, it was 14:19. Winter season has started. Competitions are underway. The girls won last night, girls basketball. So they're underway. And this coming Monday, before they start teacher conferences, I'm going to do a book study with my coaches, all my coaches. You went in the locker room first. I do have copies for all of you to read. It's a great, quick read. It's a wonderful book. It doesn't talk about sports. It talks about how you get things motivated. And one of the co-authors is Mike Smith, the former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons that was one play away from the Super Bowl. I met him. He spoke at our IADA conference, and he's going to be doing some Zoom meetings with my coaches. So a lot of good things happening. Great fall, but that's just kind of the highlights. We have a lot of good things with wrestling, dance, all that stuff coming up in November. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Peter. I want to say that I appreciate the work of each department as they bring convergence to our work as a unified school district. Of course, this work has been, some of it's been in the making for a while, some of it has just started as we've come together. But I want to make sure that people know that this has been a great opportunity for all of us to work together, to converge, to talk about equity, to be fair, and that we will continue to follow our strategic plan to make sure things happen, great things happen for children and for our staff and for the families. So thank you. Thank you to everybody for that. Next up, the data. All right, so I'm going to preface this, right? So this is the beginning of the year. We're talking September, October, maybe the first week of, September, October data, right? Attendance data is the first quarter that I'd like for you to know about, and we're going to go through this. I know that this is the first time children are coming back to school after being out, so don't be alarmed, right? At this moment, it's unsurprising as children and families are getting used to coming back in. We have COVID, we have bus issues, we have a lot of those things, so I'm just prefacing that. All right, so if you take a look at this, the first column there is the district overall average. Our district overall average for attendance is 89.11%, okay? The line that you see across is that 89.11%. Anybody over that line surpasses the district's average. So schools like Brooks, Cortland, Founders, Jefferson, Lincoln, Littlejohn, and Malta are over that 89.11%. Huntley is at 89.73. Clinton Rosette is at 88.48. So they're right, they're straddling it, but I just want you to know that that is the first quarter attendance across the district. If we look at attendance by grade, somebody's gonna have to click for me or something. Let me get over.
Go over there.
So if we take a look at grade, again, that line is at 89.11%. And you'll notice that 5th grade takes the lead for actually being in school more often at 93.19%. And then we have variations based on where we are. We, of course, need to take a look at high school. High school obviously has a different set of numbers. I would normally say 95% or better we'd want to see at the elementary. That's from K to 8th grade. And then 90% would be what I would want to see at the high school level. Okay.
Do we have a jumping off point for this from last year?
I'm sorry?
From last year, what was our average?
So last year we were not really in attendance.
Maybe year before.
I suppose we can get updated numbers from probably
2019?
like, yeah, we'd have to do like prior to March 17th. March 17th is when we went out, so it would have to be, if we can probably get you something from 2018, 2019, to be comparable to where we are right now. This is race and ethnicity and how we're doing in relation to which students are making it to school in a timely basis. And as you can see, the area of our students is that Black and or African American students are the ones that are not making it to school quite as often at 84.16%, while our Native Hawaiian, white students, Hispanic students, Asian students, and American Indian students are making it at 90 or better. Oops. Okay. One more, sorry. It worked now. So here we're talking about the student group, again, 89.11%. So if we're taking a look at not the grouping in regards to students with special needs and or, I can't see that, so I have to say that one. I'm sorry about that.
I think English
so,
language.
Our limited English students, our LEP students are at 91.67. They're the ones that are coming to school a little bit more often, along with our not low-income students. Otherwise than that, the other groups of students are not making it into school quite as on time, right? Although it's not much of a difference, but it's enough of a variation for us to be able to notice and mark it. Okay, question, well, any attendance questions?
Well, yeah, really quick, when we're looking at this, this plays a big role in what we were talking about with the busing.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of those issues are around that, right?
Okay.
So that's why I prefaced that we're in COVID, you know, the whole issue around that. So it could very well be
May I
that,
ask
you know, that's happening. Yes.
So when we see these differences or gaps between student groups, either by race or ethnicity or by English language learner, IEP, or income status, are we looking at it then as what do we need to do better to get the students, and like what are we not doing so that's missing? You know, why are we seeing these groups of students specifically affected?
Right.
Is that how, I mean, what is the frame?
Well, so part of it is that transportation issue that we need to talk about, the students not making it to school because of whatever that is. Then there are social, emotional, and trauma needs that are being addressed through the professional development that is happening with staff. So those two are the first pieces that we're doing, making sure that we have what we need. Some of them are beyond our sphere of control, such as transportation, obviously. You know, for obvious reasons we've discussed at length. And then the other is to make sure that we are working with our staff to ensure that when students do come, they feel like they belong, that they feel like they're, you know, that they're engaged in what they're learning. Kim also talked about the DOK, the level of rigor, making sure things are engaging for them. So, you know, our teachers are doing everything they can. I visited a school today where most of the things that Kim talked about and have been discussed were very obvious. Students were very engaged. I think that the more that children feel that way, the more often that they will want to come if they can get themselves to school. So again, the sphere of control of what we can
So then
control.
looking at potentially what we can do to
Exactly.
make sure we're engaging all of our students.
Absolutely.
Or each of our students. So.
Absolutely.
And I don't disagree with that, however, caveat. If we don't know what we're starting from, for example, if I were to go back and look at the data from 2018 and see that actually our African American students were only attending 80%,
Okay.
we would actually be seeing improvement. Without having a jumping off point, we really have nothing to compare to. In other words, are we better or worse? So if you're going to put together a plan to fix something, I think it's best to start, you know, where you're actually at. And so I would actually love to see that in the next data presentation.
Sure.
If we don't know where we're starting from, how do we know where we're going to?
Just as long as we realize that the group of students that we had then would not be the same group of students we're talking about now, right?
That comes out
So,
in the wash, obviously.
yeah.
And then also total number, ampersand is always nice to see. only because if you have a very small student population,
Yes.
clearly just 1 or 2 students missing can
Yeah.
skew the data, so if you could put that in the columns as well. Just sharing
I agree
information.
with that. I'm a big numbers next to the percentage, so I did discuss doing that. So we can have an updated version of this in comparison for 2018, 2019 to this school year, just understanding that kindergartners that back then will be third graders this year, so that we can, see the difference between that. We just have to be mindful of that.
And
It's at least a data point.
Sure,
It's
absolutely.
even if there's been an improvement, that's great, but if there's a gap, that's still showing that there are inequities there,
Yes.
that we're not reaching student populations the same way.
Absolutely.
Essentially, so just a
Absolutely.
clarification point.
Right, so this is really, this data is really about where we currently stand, where we are today.
Right.
Or we were the first quarter, and how we're going to be moving on the students that we currently have in place, where they are. All right. All right, so this is BOY, beginning of the year, this school year assessment data. So students are assessed on a couple of different types of assessments. Well, the first one is going to be around the NSGRA, and that is the next step in guided reading assessment that is given to our first grade students. The line is 69%. 69% is where the district says that our students are not where they're supposed to be at that time of the year, right? So just to keep it simple. So if a school is below, if the red is above that line, that means that they're doing worse than what the district average is. If it's below the line, they're doing better. So this is first grade. Remember, first time children have been in school, right? So they missed kindergarten, probably were not in pre-K, and so this is their first time that they're being assessed. Do I have to explain more than that?
No.
Okay. So here's the same thing again. This is by reading level, and this is by race, ethnicity. So if you look from the bottom, it's district overall: Asian, Black, African American, then Hispanic, multiracial, then white. Here is our performance for 2nd through 8th graders on the math reading, which is the NWEA assessment that is usually done to progress monitor across 2nd through 8th grade. So it's a measure of academic progress. 63% is the line that you see across. 63% is the combination of yellow and red, which are the bottom 2 quartiles. Okay? So if you go across, anytime you see yellow passing that line, it means we have more than 63% of our students not making that. Green and blue are great numbers of students that are already there, that they're making, that they're where they're supposed to be at the beginning of the year, right? So they're having a great start. Across the bottom, you'll see that it's Brooks, Portland, Founders, Jefferson, Lincoln, Littlejohn. Then we have Malta, Tyler, Clinton, Rosette, and then Huntley. Remember, in this one, you have the color red, and the yellow is the number that should be the smallest versus the green and then the blue.
So just so I'm reading this correctly, then it would say that Brooks and Tyler and Lincoln are like the 3 least performing. Is that correct?
So Brooks and Tyler are, and definitely Lincoln are the numbers, and then Founders is right there as well.
Okay.
That have,
So I'm just reading it right then. Okay.
But we also have specific programs in those buildings with children with special needs. There's a lot of other programmatic things that are occurring there that might also show why we're having that data look the way that it looks.
Okay.
So here is, again, the map by grade level, district overall. Again, the percentile is at the purple line that goes across. And this is by grade level. So we are looking at our 8th graders actually are doing a little bit better. So, by the numbers, right? Just by the sheer fact of the colors. I think numbers here would help us definitely make sure what those look like across all of the schools. But notice second grade, of course, second grade is where I expect that we would have a little bit more trouble, only because this is the first time they're in school, right? If they were in kindergarten, fine. If they weren't, then this is why we're saying what we're saying. So again, second grade needs to be improved. Again, here we are with English, and this is across our race and ethnicity. If you take a look at the Asian group, that seems to have the most students on track based on progress monitoring. Our Black and African American students are the ones that need the more assistance. In this case, then Hispanic, then our multiracial, and then our white students. We give the same test in Spanish for students that are Spanish speakers. So this is where we are with that in relation to who services those students. So we have Portland, Founders, Little Rock, Flint, Rosette, and then Huntley. This would speak to where students are actually able to read and digest contextual information in the native language. I have a few questions around that, but not until I see the middle of the year data will we know that if it is truly a language issue or it's another issue, we'll be able to tell a little bit better, okay? Same thing here by grade for the Spanish, for those that take Spanish. In this case, you take a look at our second graders, and that kind of flips the script there. They're doing much better here than they are in the English section. Transition usually takes about 5 years for students to go from taking a native language, Spanish, into English. Unless they're in a dual program that's two-way, then this could speak to that as well, so it's combined. Here's math. Take a look at that red. Right, so these are our elementary and middle schools across the district and where we currently are. Math, we know, is an area of growth for us, hence the reason we're doing math talks. We have Envision, schools are getting training, we're going to be coaching teachers and the support that is needed for the schools that are working there. I was at Cortland earlier today, actually visited one of the classrooms that was being observed by a peer, where they're coaching and training each other, so the support is there. And they're learning how to better use the program in their building. It is a third grade classroom, I believe. And the teacher was a bilingual, one-way teacher. And then here is math, again, by grade. Take a look, second, third, fourth grade are the grade levels that we seem to need a little bit of work on. I'm going to say across all grade levels, we need to work on mathematics a little bit better to make sure that they can transition into high school. So we'll continue to push mathematics, professional development and support for all teachers. And then, again, here we are by race and ethnicity. Again, our Black and African American students and our Latino students, Latino students are in most need of additional advanced supports. We'll continue to support them. All right. So, any questions? I mean, I hear you. I got numbers coming. We'll make sure that we get that for you. Any other questions?
A lot of work to do.
All right. Suspension data. Again, first quarter. Let that sink in for a second. So we got DeKalb High School, Flint, Rosette, Huntley, Brooks, Portland, Founders, Jefferson, Lincoln, Little John, Malta, and then Tyler. So you see that we're sandwiched by DeKalb and Tyler. You take a look at Portland and Jefferson, they're at 0. So 0 instances of suspensions at that school. I'm wondering what's going on. How can we borrow? Right? That's what I'm looking at. And then we have Founders, and then Lincoln and Malta, who are a little bit further ahead, maybe a few more. I'm wondering how they're differentiating what that looks like. So we'll be diving deeper into that as we're building out our student code of conduct and making sure that we're taking a look at our students are being suspended. And then, of course, the other schools, the middle schools, the high school, not kind of surprising. Brooks and Tyler, I'm going to say, we'll need to take a look and see the programming, the students that are there, what are the reasons behind being suspended. And so we'll have a deeper conversation with the counseling and the administrators there. Again, this is first quarter. The big, large blue bar is Black or African American students. The number is close to 70, 69.22%. So we know who's going on. Correlation between this, attendance, and you know, how they're doing at assessments, how we're progress monitoring, there's our root cause. It could be part of the root cause, so we need to take a look at that a little deeper to triangulate between those three things to see how students are doing. That's not to say that we shouldn't do that with the rest of them, and then how many of those are individual students versus how many are instances that it's the same student over and over. So to disaggregate this data a little bit more by school so that we know who we're looking at and supporting where they need to be supported. Yes, sir.
The lines that you had drawn across again, can you tell me where those came from?
So the purple line is the district average. So we just wanted you to know. So the first one was the district.
I was thinking that. Then I thought you said something about like, we're doing good if we're above it or below. You just mean that
No.
those specific schools are above average.
This is what yeah, exactly. So I wanted you to know this is what the district average is, and then across all the schools or grades, this is how it compares to that district average.
So the follow-up question then is just to confirm that. What are we going to have, like, what we deem is, I mean, we could say like 100%, even on like the math and so forth, are we going to come up with what, you know, a minimum acceptable number that we have to get beyond, or are we going to just look for marked improvement or both? I guess I'm just wondering how you're planning on approaching that.
So there's a couple of things. One of them is we're putting in a lot of new things. There's a lot of things that have been stabilized for the teachers, right? So we'll find out a couple of things. We'll find out what has been working, what is going to continue to work. Again, I'm very hopeful, and I believe that the reason that we're seeing this is because we're coming back after 18 months of not being out, right? And so now they're finally in front of good, sound teachers, good learning, and we should see some major growth in relation to assessments by middle of the year. My expectation, right? Definitely by end of the year. So the thing is like, so this year is kind of a tough call to say 75% of our kids should be on track to matriculate till next year, having learned the standards that they need to. That's a number I'd like to see eventually, right? But if I don't have that data based on the fact, I can't compare this data to the data that happened in 2018 because they had been in school previous years, and now we have an 18-month gap where they haven't been.
Right.
And so we need to start where we are right now.
Is there national data available? Because I think that would be relevant.
I mean, we can compare to other districts and how they did based on our number and then our demographics. We can take a look at that. Phil, if you don't mind taking some notes, we can share that with you. We can.
I have to imagine like everyone's up against this, right? It would be interesting to see how we've done just comparatively to a bigger number of locations and districts.
I will say that with my colleagues here, with the other superintendents in this ROE, we're seeing very similar things. I also have relationships with people like in Forest Park, in Lake Forest, in Freeport, in Elgin, and Waukegan. Pretty much kind of the same thing. Mathematics seems to be something that everybody is struggling with. Our numbers are actually better than other people in regards to mathematics, but it's still, I'm hearing the same thing. I haven't compared their data to ours. I'm just going based on conversations that I've had with them. But I'm sure we can pull like-minded or similar districts on how they did in relation to how we did. The other thing that you'll have uploaded into the board docs is the 120-page Illinois State report card, the district report card. There's a lot of data missing from there. And that's going to be true because we don't have anything to compare it to. But that's definitely a place that you can take a look at. If you would like to take a moment to take a look at the IIRC, which is how you can compare other districts in the state of Illinois, you can pull up any school district and see comparatively how they're doing to us. IIRC, right, Phil?
Yeah, Illinois Interactive Report Card.
Thank you. I couldn't remember what the acronym stood for, but that's it.
Well, as far as the suspension rates, I don't think that those are really any different. I think we've been failing to relate to and failing our black students for a very long time.
They're not new.
Yeah, it's nothing, no, that's what I'm saying, it's not new. That is not a new.
In fact, I think our school is in the top 20% for disproportionality in suspension rates by race and ethnicity. And that's based on the 3 previous years. That's not even, that has nothing to do with this year.
Right, forget COVID.
So one of the things that we noticed is early on was that there isn't really a student code of conduct. So expectations of how students need to behave and then what the consequences are across all schools have varying different consequent level, right? So what I might do inappropriately at Tyler might garner me, a 1-day suspension, and over at, Cortland, it might be a 2-day suspension. So the other thing is making sure that there's a fair field of consequences across the school district is one of the areas that we're working on.
Can I ask, since you point that out, that we make sure we have representation of our communities in that whatever committee is working on it, because there are definitely some values that are norms that are not necessarily norms in all cultures. And so making sure that we are adjusting and making sure that we're
So Kyle is actually leading that work. Kyle, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, where we're starting with is a small group of, administrators primarily, but then our discussion at our initial meeting was what other stakeholders are we bringing around the table along this process. Some of the conversation was around who are the people that are would be most impacted by the code of conduct or have been impacted by suspensions in the past. Let's bring their voices into the process as well. So it will be a part of the process we go through.
So this process isn't something that's going to be an overnight kind of turn. It's going to take us some time. Kyle has been a part of almost every suspension or big issue that needs to occur, so that he knows and understands what those issues look like and what we're talking about, so that when we're talking about them at this committee level, that we can give prime examples of how we need to consider it in different ways, right? So once we know what the levels of consequences are, and based on what actions or inactions, what that might look like, then we can begin to train everybody else on how to use that. There are restorative practices that we expect people to use. There are different levels of trauma training that we'll begin to share with folks. So all of those things will also help us, I believe, to mitigate some of this. But until everybody's comfortable and we understand what the process is, it's going to take us some time.
And just cultural competency too for staff, teachers, administrators.
Which I know we've been doing a lot of capacity building in those areas since we've approved the diversity plan, and even before that there's been initiatives to build that capacity. But I think we have to see changes now. And I understand, COVID has impacted a lot of things and has disproportionately affected students of color, students living in homes with low incomes, but that's out of our control, so we have to meet students where they're at and do what we can in our control, because it's not fair, and it's not just, and it's not equitable.
Right. I agree. I don't disagree with what you said.
No, I know. It's hard to look at this data and show it to our community and say this is what we're doing and how we're serving our students. And so
one of the things that is imperative for us to be able to understand is the cultural responsiveness, right? So cultural responsiveness leads to a lot of what you're talking about, right? So if we don't understand where people come from, we believe something different, there's a bias that is implicit or explicit sometimes. And so that kind of training, that removal of those things needs to be out there, which is one of the reasons that I would like us to consider us getting the training that I know is very expensive. But you know, at some point or another, we're gonna have to break it down so that we can do that training to support what we need to be able to make these changes. Not to say that we can't make them, it's just that if all of us are working in the capacity of which we currently are and we're not getting the constructive learning that we need to make it better, it's gonna take us a little longer to get there. And you know, I'm not saying that it's not right, it's just that sometimes taking it slow kind of builds that resilience that we need.
Changing systems takes time, I understand.
Yeah.
And I understand that our teachers, we have to meet them where they're at too, and it's also been traumatic for them the last 18 months. So it's a lot to deal with, but we can't fail students.
Yeah,
especially
and
this
I think it's important for the public to understand that culturally responsive teaching is based in neurobiology. Its foundation is scientific and it's evidence-based, and so it's something that is you know, essential for students to learn, to have their basic needs met, to you know, address the whole child.
Absolutely.
So that's
yeah, absolutely. Daisy, did you have your hand?
I was actually going to say,
okay,
we're actually sharing, or we just shared. And I think also just looking at, it's definitely disheartening to look at that, but we know that this is not new, so I appreciate this information being brought to light. I think that there's definitely opportunities for training to take place also, and professional opportunities for us to maybe collaborate with people or professionals outside of the district that can provide support, right, and training on restorative justice practices. Even at NIU just got nominated as being one of the top or leading institutions of diversity, equity, and inclusion work, right? And maybe building or thinking about collaborating or providing or collaborating really with NIU, and that's where you're creating partnerships to see how we can better support the staff and having these dialogue conversations about, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and seeing how we can hopefully bridge some of these gaps that we're seeing, or opportunities for growth and learning.
We do have a strong history of partnering with NIU, so that makes sense to rekindle that partnership.
And not just obviously on obviously just race issues, but really also on gender issues, undocumented student support services, right? LGBTQ services, and there's a lot of trainings that NIU offers to our, like currently to the staff, that we can possibly partner up with, and those are some of the conversations that Ari and myself were having with, or that we were having, that derived out of a conversation that I had with a staff member at Huntley. So, you know, there's definitely opportunities for growth in that, and I think when we're addressing the student holistically and serving the student holistically, a lot of these issues, you know, are big in their identities, and we have to understand that obviously intersecting identities are a thing, right? And our students may be facing a lot of different challenges depending on, you know, where they stand.
I mean, and not to volunteer, but you know, I'd love to have anybody from the board willing to be a part of this that can make connections.
It's literally the unit I work in. This is my job.
Okay, there you go. Ari and Daisy are up to that work, and anybody else, feel free. So again, I'm just going to reiterate to close is that we know that this is a moment in time.
Yes.
It is right now. It is not the future. It is where we started. For those of you that are teachers and that are watching that are teachers and the aides and the school leaders and everyone else, I have full faith that this is just this moment, and we'll be celebrating completely different middle of the year. So we'll probably have that data, Phil, that would be February, March?
Yes.
So February, March, so that we can completely analyze the data, break it down, and be able to share it with you. And then in between there, we'll try to get you some data in between so that you can see the comparison from the 2018-2019 school year to this school year. Okay, Phil?
And I'm also hopeful, and I want to make sure that I reiterate that we do appreciate everything that everyone is doing, from teachers to, you name it, janitors, administrators, everyone. We know that this is not easy, but I appreciate also this information being brought to light, because it is important and it is something that we are working collectively to support all of you in making sure that we provide the appropriate support as well, to make sure that you all have the tools to feel confident enough to have these conversations and move forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Please
Thank you.
know that.
Oh,
Chance.
I think maybe we could lower that number by having programs or like certain days where we take learning about our different cultures because there is a time where a teacher had a discussion with us where we just said what we felt about the school, where we had things that we felt like that was an issue, and I think a lot of students appreciated the time that the teacher took to just be able to talk about the problems that were happening, and like we kind of saw an improvement with the relationship with the teacher too, because when you build trust with the teacher, it makes you be able to look up to somebody that is correcting. So that might be a solution to that.
So you said incorporating programming that can allow discussions to happen where students feel validated or their voices being heard, so that they can build relationships with the teacher and trust. That's a great idea.
Thank you, Chan.
Thank you for sharing that.
All right. Any other comments? But I just want to touch base just on two things that came out of this meeting. I just want to make sure that we have a board consensus around just updated version of the presentation with data from 2018 with numbers, percentages, and also coming, yes, consensus for that?
Yes.
Yes. And then also solutions to our transportation issues to make sure that we're getting our students to school, directing that from the board as a request to address. Is that consensus?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And with that, we will go ahead and recommend that the Board of Education will adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Yes,
I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure I said a couple of things. Yesterday was Illinois School Board Day. Thank you very much, the school board, for all you do and for being a volunteer and working with all of us. Just an FYI, the CALB is now completely set up with the immunization and health data that it needed to send to the district, so we're good with that. And then, again, I just wanted to make sure that you know that the state district report card is listed on, posted there. So, thank you. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. So we will be adjourning the meeting, and we will be going back into closed session. So we're going. Go from here. So we'll go ahead and adjourn to closed session. Is there a motion?
Second.
And I'm sorry, it is recommended that the Board of Education adjourn to closed session to closed session to discuss minutes, discussion by the primary employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of the specific employees of the public body of collective bargaining, after which action may be taken. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Roll call?
Jerry Olson,
Yes.
Lisa Ramirez,
Yes.
Dave Seymour,
Yes.
Amanda Murnau,
Yes.
Samantha